Throw them both out. She was fired, and that old man is trespassing.
Stop. You're making a terrible mistake, Mr. Hale. The man you called homeless is Arthur Bennett, the founder and owner of this company. Tonight,
Get out. This restaurant serves paying guests. It is not a shelter for homeless people. In the middle of the brightly lit marble lobby of the Grand Bennett, Victor Hale blocked the path of an elderly man whose clothes were soaked with rain. Dozens of diners watched. None of them knew that the hand Victor had just treated with contempt could shut down the entire restaurant with a single signature. But Arthur Bennett did not argue. He simply looked at Victor, calm and patient, as though he wanted to see just how far the man was willing to go. Outside the glass doors, cold rain battered the streets of Boston. Arthur pulled his worn coat tighter around himself and spoke quietly. "I only asked for a glass of water and a place to stand until the rain slows down. Our guests pay to use this space." Arthur opened his palm, revealing a few coins. "Then may I buy the least expensive item on the menu? Perhaps the Bennett stew you used to serve?" Victor's expression briefly changed. That name had disappeared from the menu years earlier, long before the restaurant was renamed the Grand Bennett. But he quickly replaced his surprise with a smirk. "That is not enough to buy a single slice of bread." Victor knocked Arthur's hand aside. The coins scattered across the floor, their cold, metallic sound cutting through the piano music. One copper coin rolled farther than the others, spinning beneath the lights before stopping beside Maya Collins's wet shoes. Maya was carrying a large container of dirty dishes. She placed it down, picked up the coin, and noticed the number 001 engraved beside the restaurant's original symbol. Then she returned it to Arthur. "Here you go, sir." Victor stared at her coldly. "Go back to the dishwashing area. Do not interfere with management decisions." Maya pressed her lips together. Before walking away, she supported Arthur by the elbow so he would not slip on the wet floor. Victor immediately signaled security. Arthur was taken through the service hallway and pushed out through the rear entrance into the rain. Inside the kitchen, everyone was racing to prepare for an inspection by corporate executives. Silver trays crashed together, chefs shouted orders, and steam covered the dishwashing station where Maya was working, when her phone vibrated inside her pocket. "Mom," Emma said, her 8-year-old voice small and rough. "My asthma inhaler is almost empty." Maya looked at the medication appointment taped inside her phone case. "I will pick up the medicine tomorrow. Tonight, keep the inhaler beside your bed and call our neighbor if you have trouble breathing." After ending the call, Maya opened the paycheck she had just received. 14 hours of overtime had disappeared. It was not the first time. She removed a folded copy of her timesheet from her pocket and compared each line. Then she quietly put it away when Victor walked past. Gabriel placed a container of soup and 2 slices of bread beside her. "This is the last employee meal. You have not eaten since this morning." Maya thanked him, but when she opened the delivery door to take out the trash, she saw Arthur sitting beneath the narrow awning. Rainwater dripped from his hair onto his pale, cold face. She looked at the soup, then at the missed call from Emma. A long day, a short paycheck, and only one meal. Maya had every reason to turn away, but she stepped outside. "Put this on." She took the old raincoat hanging behind the door and placed it around Arthur's shoulders. Then she sat on a wooden crate, divided the soup between 2 paper cups, and broke the bread in half. Arthur looked at the half portion in his hands. "You know I cannot give you anything in return." Maya gently blew across the hot soup. "Hunger does not require proof." A small star had been drawn in purple ink on her lunch container. Arthur stared at it in silence. The same kind of star had appeared on anonymous envelopes sent to his office, accusing the restaurant of deleting employee hours and withholding tips. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Long enough to know that I should not answer too many questions." "And long enough to know what they are taking from you?" Maya turned her face away. 14 hours this month. But around here, knowing the number does not mean you are allowed to say it out loud." Arthur looked through the open doorway. A work schedule hung on the wall, with several shifts changed in red ink. Beneath a small office desk sat a box of documents labeled, "Destroy after inspection." His eyes remained on it longer than a stranger's should have. Chloe walked through the hallway and saw Maya sharing her food. The young server looked toward Victor's office, then at the half-slice of bread in Arthur's hand. In the end, Chloe said nothing and continued walking. But several minutes later, the door flew open. Victor appeared. "What do you think you are doing?" He ripped the cup of soup from Arthur's hand and threw it directly into the trash. Soup splashed across the concrete floor. "He was hungry," Maya replied. "You stole restaurant food to feed a homeless man?" "That was my employee meal. Gabriel gave it to me." Maya did not look toward Gabriel. She refused to drag him into the situation. Victor pulled out his tablet and typed several lines. "I will deduct the cost of this meal from your paycheck." "You just threw away food that belonged to me. And I can throw you out as well if you continue arguing." Arthur stood up, his voice still calm. "Is one bowl of soup worth destroying a mother's life?" Victor turned toward him. "People like her can always be replaced." Then he leaned close to Maya. "If the inspection team hears one complaint from you, you will not have a job tomorrow, and your daughter will no longer have health insurance." Maya gripped the edge of the table. Fear appeared in her eyes, but she did not apologize for feeding Arthur. Victor ordered her to work 2 additional hours without pay to make up for the supposed loss. Then he called security and told them to remove Arthur. As Arthur passed the dishwashing station, he discreetly placed the copper coin marked 001 beside Maya's hand. Outside in the darkness, he took out an old phone and sent a message. "The letters are genuine. Do not begin the inspection without me." Maya looked at the coin and noticed the words engraved on the back. "Every guest has a seat." At that moment, Victor returned with a security employee. His eyes stopped on Maya's personal locker. "Open her locker." Victor's order echoed through the cramped employee changing room. A security officer moved toward the locker bearing Maya's name, but she immediately stepped in front of it. "You cannot search my personal belongings without a representative from the Human Resources Department present." Victor reached toward the lock. "If you had nothing to hide, you would not need to mention procedure." He gave the signal again. The locker door swung open, revealing several uniforms, a drawing made by Emma, and an old wooden box containing recipes that had belonged to Maya's mother. A small lock secured the lid. Victor lifted the box. "Stolen food or confidential company documents?" "That belongs to my family." Victor ordered someone to bring a tool to break the lock. Gabriel stepped forward, speaking quickly. "The box belongs to me. I asked her to keep it for me." Maya immediately shook her head. "No, Gabriel, do not involve yourself in this." The look in her eyes silenced him. Maya knew Gabriel had already been demoted once for objecting to cuts in employee meals. If he accepted responsibility, Victor would have an excuse to fire them both. Just as the cutting tool was raised, the sound of high heels came from the hallway. Evelyn Bennett appeared with 2 board members and an independent auditor. The inspection team had arrived earlier than expected. Victor placed the box down. His cold expression immediately transformed into a professional smile. "Miss Bennett, what an honor. I am handling a disciplinary matter to make sure every company standard is being followed." Evelyn looked at the open locker, then at Maya's pale face. "We came to inspect restaurant operations, not to watch an employee being interrogated." "Of course." Victor turned toward security. "Take Miss Collins back to the dishwashing area. We should not allow a minor misunderstanding to interfere with the schedule." He kept the recipe box inside his office. At the opposite end of the building, Arthur walked around the delivery area and opened an old metal door hidden behind a row of storage containers. A narrow passage led directly into the service hallway. It had once been used to transport food when the original restaurant first opened. None of the newer employees knew it existed. Maya saw him step out of the shadows, still wearing her old raincoat. "You did not leave? Victor will not stop over one bowl of soup." "That is exactly why I cannot leave." Arthur took the coin marked 001 from his pocket. The letters sent to corporate headquarters all had a small star on them, just like the one drawn on your lunch container. Maya's hand stopped above the stack of dishes. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Perhaps you did not write them, but you know what the person who wrote them was trying to say." Maya studied him for a long moment. "Suppose someone risked everything to send those letters. Do you really believe the person receiving them cares about dishwashers, servers, or kitchen workers?" Arthur closed his hand around the coin. "The person who received them came here personally to find the truth." Before Maya could ask another question, Chloe entered and closed the door behind her. "My tips have been short for 7 months." The young server pulled out several signed statements. "Victor told me that if I refused to confirm I had received the full amount, he would take away my highest-paying shifts." Gabriel entered next and showed Maya photographs of old work schedules on his phone. In the pictures, employees still had all of their overtime hours before the numbers were changed. Maya looked at her 2 co-workers. The fear of losing Emma's health insurance still tightened around her chest, but silence was no longer protecting anyone. Maya removed a small key hidden behind her name tag. While Victor was leading the inspection team through the dining room, she slipped into his office and opened the recipe box. The neat yellowed pages were payroll statements and a silver storage drive. "I sent the letters," she admitted. "I used my accounting experience to compare employee time records, tips, and management bonuses." Chloe looked at the storage drive. "Is everything on there?" "Not only from this restaurant. Records from 3 locations show the same pattern. Hundreds of overtime hours disappeared, while tips from private events were renamed as management fees." In the hallway, one of Victor's closest employees overheard the final words and hurried away to warn him. Victor did not rush into the office. He called the technology department first. "Turn off the cameras in the kitchen and service hallways. Record the reason as maintenance." Several seconds later, the small indicator lights on every camera went dark. Maya heard footsteps approaching. She slipped the storage drive into the pocket of the raincoat Arthur was wearing, then placed the recipe box back on the desk. Victor entered, ripped the box from her hands, and dumped everything onto the floor. He searched through the recipes, payroll records, and even Emma's drawing, but he could not find the storage drive. "Where is the data?" "I did not take anything that belongs to you." Victor grabbed Maya by the arm and dragged her into the dishwashing area in front of the other employees. "Maya Collins has stolen confidential company information. Take your hand off her." Arthur entered and placed himself between Victor and Maya. Victor laughed. "A homeless man believes he has the right to interfere with restaurant operations?" Arthur held his gaze. "Are you prepared to repeat this behavior in front of the inspection team?" The dining room doors were only one hallway away. Victor could have stopped, reviewed the evidence, or followed the proper process. Instead, he tore the employee identification card from Maya's neck. "You are fired, effective immediately. Your health insurance ends at the end of the month." Maya turned pale at the thought of Emma's asthma inhaler, but she did not look toward the raincoat pocket holding the storage drive. Victor pointed at Arthur. "Remove both of them." As security escorted them toward the dining room, Victor called the technology department again. "Delete every old employee time record before the server inspection begins." But Arthur's message had already reached Evelyn's phone. She read several lines, looked at the independent auditor, and gave an immediate order. "Seal the servers now. No one may delete, alter, or copy any data without legal supervision." The dining room doors opened. Arthur and Maya were brought before the inspection team, the board members, and the employees who had gathered to watch. Victor followed them inside, his confidence restored. "This woman was just fired for theft. The man beside her is a homeless stranger she tried to bring into the restaurant." Arthur slowly placed the coin marked 001 on the table. Evelyn looked at the original restaurant symbol, recognized it from the founding documents, and stood up. "Mr. Hale, the man you just called homeless is Arthur Bennett, the founder and owner of this restaurant." The entire room fell silent. Victor looked at Arthur, then at Maya. His face lost all color. But instead of apologizing, he pointed directly at her. "She knew who he was. This entire situation was staged so she could receive a reward." Arthur turned toward the security screens, which were now completely dark. "Then restore the recordings from before I arrived. They will show us exactly what kind of person Maya truly is." Arthur stood before the inspection team and slowly removed the old raincoat Maya had given him. He placed the coin marked 001 on the table, with the original Bennett symbol facing Victor. "My name is Arthur Bennett. I am the founder and chairman of Bennett Dining Group." The entire dining room seemed to freeze. The guests who had watched him being thrown out of the lobby now avoided his eyes. Kitchen employees crowded around the doorway, while Victor struggled to keep his hands from shaking. "This is all an act," he said. "Maya recognized him from the beginning. She gave him food to win his favor, then created this story so she could receive a reward." Maya looked at Victor, but she did not beg Arthur to believe her. Evelyn walked toward the control panel. "If Maya staged her kindness because she knew who my father was, then we do not need to rely on her word. Restore the security footage from the previous weeks." A technician opened the video archive. The first recording showed Maya quietly leaving a container of food beside the rear entrance for a homeless veteran. She returned to work before he woke up. Another video showed a delivery driver collapsing from exhaustion. Maya helped him sit down, and gave him her water and meal, even though she still had an entire shift ahead of her. The next recordings showed her repeatedly standing between Victor and younger employees. When he yelled at an intern for breaking a plate, Maya accepted the blame. When a kitchen assistant was forced to work through his break, she quietly brought him water and recorded the extra time for him. Every one of those moments had happened before the night Arthur appeared. Maya never looked toward the cameras, and she had no idea she was being recorded. Victor's accusation collapsed under the weight of evidence that could not be disputed. But he immediately changed his argument. "She still stole confidential company data. That is illegal." Maya stepped forward. "I made copies of employee time records and payroll statements." "You just admitted it." "Because every formal complaint disappeared after it was sent to the regional office. I kept copies to prove that money was being taken from employees." Arthur reached into the raincoat pocket and removed the silver storage drive. The man Victor believed owned nothing was holding evidence that could shake the entire corporation. "She did not give this to me in exchange for money," Arthur said. "She hid it in my coat so Victor could not destroy it." He handed the storage drive to the independent auditor. The files appeared on the large screen. Thousands of overtime hours at the Grand Bennett had been deleted from the payroll system. Tips from private events had been renamed as event management fees. Part of that money was added to the restaurant's reported profits, then used directly to calculate Victor's performance bonus. Victor took a step backward. "The accounting department handled those numbers. I cannot review every line." Gabriel stepped out from the group of employees and gave his phone to the auditor. It contained photographs of the original work schedules. "I took these before the hours were changed. Victor ordered us to clock out and continue working. I remained silent because I was afraid of losing my job. That is something I have to take responsibility for." Chloe stood beside him, tightly gripping the signed tip statements. "He forced me to sign documents saying I had received the full amount. If I refused, I would lose my highest-paying shifts. I also remained silent when Maya was humiliated. But she did not steal our money." One by one, more employees stepped forward. Servers, kitchen assistants, cleaners, and cooks formed a line beside Maya. The people Victor had always called replaceable had become witnesses he could no longer silence. Victor turned toward Denise. She approved the regional reports. I was only following the targets I was given. Evelyn ordered the sealed company emails to be opened. One message showed Victor directly instructing the accounting department to delete overtime hours and rename employee tips as management fees. Another showed that Denise had received the complaints, but dismissed them because the restaurant's profits were rising quickly. Records from 2 other locations appeared next. They showed the same deleted hours, the same false fees, and the same unusually perfect financial reports. The misconduct was no longer limited to one manager at one restaurant. Arthur looked at the employees standing before him. His voice became quieter. Victor chose to commit fraud. Denise chose to look away. But I also share responsibility. I approved a bonus system based almost entirely on profit. That system rewarded managers when they reduced employee benefits. I trusted the reports without listening to the people who created the numbers. Evelyn turned toward the board. The investigation must include the executive level. No one should be allowed to use Victor as an excuse to avoid responsibility for the system itself. Victor was suspended immediately in the dining room. His access badge was taken, his company accounts were locked, and his appointment as regional director was canceled. Denise was also suspended while the investigation continued. Arthur did not take Maya into a private room and offer her money in exchange for silence. Instead, he publicly ordered an independent audit of all 47 restaurants in the company. Then he turned toward her. "Maya, what reward would you like?" She looked at Gabriel, Chloe, and the co-workers who had finally stepped out of the shadows. "Before you give me anything, return the hours, meals, and tips that were taken from them." The kitchen area remained silent for a moment. Then the employees moved closer and stood beside her. Arthur offered Maya a management position, but she gently declined. "I understand numbers, but I do not have enough experience running a restaurant. I do not want to receive a title simply because I did what I believed was right. I want to finish my accounting degree and help build a system where employees do not have to risk everything just to be heard." Maya received a scholarship to return to school and a paid position on the Employee Protection Committee. Gabriel was restored to his former position as assistant chef. Chloe and the other affected employees received the wages and tips they had been denied. The independent audit later confirmed that the misconduct had spread across multiple locations. Managers had been rewarded for cutting employee hours, withholding meals, and disguising tips as company revenue. New controls were introduced so that no manager could alter time records without employee confirmation and independent review. A confidential reporting system was also created outside the control of restaurant management. Employees who submitted complaints received legal protection from retaliation, while all performance bonuses were changed to include employee safety, staff retention, and accurate payroll reporting. Arthur also required every senior executive to spend time working beside restaurant employees. They washed dishes, prepared dining rooms, received deliveries, and listened directly to the people whose work had been reduced to numbers on a report. 6 months later, Arthur returned to the dishwashing area wearing a simple suit. Inside the employee break room, the coin marked 001 had been placed in a glass display case. Beneath it were the words, "Every guest has a seat. Every worker has a voice." Maya was preparing to leave for her evening class, while Emma sat doing homework at a new table created for employees' families. Her asthma medication was fully covered under the Restored Health Insurance Program, and the emergency support policy was now available to every worker facing a family medical crisis. Before leaving, Maya divided a bowl of soup with Arthur, just as she had on the first rainy night. "That night, I thought I was only giving a hungry stranger half of my meal," Arthur smiled. "No, you reminded an entire company why it was created." Maya looked toward the glass case holding the coin. The words engraved on it had once represented a promise made to every person who entered the original Bennett restaurant. Over time, that promise had been buried beneath profit reports, management bonuses, and fear. But one woman with a missing paycheck, a sick child, and only one meal had chosen not to look away. Sometimes, the person with the least power in the room is the one keeping everyone else from losing their conscience. If you had only one meal after working all day, would you be willing to share half of it with a stranger, the way Maya did? Share your answer and continue following Stewart Stories, where we tell stories of love, hope, and justice.